While cases of mortgage and credit card fraud are on the rise, Chris Amolsch is a criminal defense attorney, and he joins us now. Chris, thank you very much for being here with us.
Well, thanks for having me.
I can't imagine how this woman was supposed to protect herself. We're told to cut up our credit card receipts and watch when we go to an ATM, but someone copying her check signature?
Of all the mortgage fraud cases that I've seen, this is very old school. This is the kind of thing you saw happening 5 and 10 years ago, not now. Banks usually have protections in place to prevent something like this from happening. Suppose that you wanted to cash a check for $15,000 at a bank you don't have an account at. What they normally do is take your fingerprint, take a photo ID picture of you, and keep that on record in case anything happened. It's kind of unbelievable to me that the bank actually paid the check.
Right, so there may be something more wrong with the financial institution that she's banking with as well.
I'm not sure what happened, but something tells me that this is not as random as it might seem.
You said this is old school fraud. Is this the worst, though, of any year or decade that you've seen in a long time that we're seeing these increases in credit card and mortgage fraud?
Well, I think that we're seeing an increase of it because it's starting to come to the surface. I think fraud has been going on for as long as people have been borrowing money and taking out loans. But in an era where housing prices were going up and you could refinance your house, you could often get out from underneath it before anybody discovered it. What's happening now is that as foreclosures go up and banks start foreclosing on properties and they begin to look at how these people got loans to begin with, they're now discovering the fraud, saying we never should have made this loan to begin with, referring the prosecutions to the U.S. attorney, and that is why you're seeing the prosecutions, not necessarily because there's more of it, but because it's now coming to the surface.
Fraud is on the part of these lenders that promised everything, including the moon.
Well, it could be fraud on behalf of the lenders, but it's usually fraud in terms of the borrowers. People taking loans they couldn't qualify for, people lying on loan applications, otherwise falsifying assets to get loans they otherwise couldn't have gotten. If the lender has lent you money from a bad choice and you foreclose, there's no crime. But if I told you I made $150,000 and I only made $15,000, then that's the crime.
Chris, what about the steps that the state of Maryland has taken, that the governor has signed, so that there will be this kind of disclosure on the part of the borrower and the lender, knowing that the borrower has certain amount of funds and they can't go above what they make, and that the borrower, the lender, has to be someone reputable, certain stopgaps in place?
Well, in the loan process application, you always sign an affidavit saying I make this amount of money and my economic position hasn't changed since I applied for the loan, and now that I'm here to close on it, it sometimes takes a couple months. What we really need to do is actually change the underwriting guidelines from lenders so that you can actually afford the loan that you are taking out. Historically speaking, in the last 2 or 3 years, people lent you money based not on whether you could pay it back, but on your credit score. Right. Your ability to pay it back was almost irrelevant. What they looked at historically, have you paid loans back? That's changing. So now they're actually looking at your assets, looking at are you going to be able to satisfy this debt? And so credit score is actually becoming less important. There's no question the disclosures that have to be written better. I'm an attorney and I've closed many loans and I often don't understand what disclosures say. So there's no question that you as a borrower really have to understand what you're signing up for, and it's unclear at this point if you do.
Most egregious form of either credit card or mortgage fraud that you've seen in your career?
Most egregious form, what I'm seeing unfortunately right now is that people are being prosecuted for mortgage fraud that they themselves didn't commit. What I'm seeing is that people are assuming the identities of you, going out, getting a loan, it goes bad, the bank comes back to you to say, well, how did you get this loan? And you're saying, I don't know what's going on. That's the most egregious. So not only is the money gone, has there been a fraud perpetrated, but you are being charged for it, and then you get to come hire somebody like me to defend you for something you didn't do.
Wow. Chris Amolsch, thank you for being with us.
No, thanks for having me.
And a military strike, it may have uncovered a